And we are back. I just want to remind you that in the art room, we are having the 10th anniversary painting, and it is still not covered. How many of you actually painted something on our 10th anniversary painting? Not any from here. The painting in the art room. Yes. Everybody should contribute. So later we will have this beautiful symbol of our 10th anniversary. This is just a reminder, go to the art room and make a painting. And our people on the other side, we will show you a painting later. So we don't know what to expect yet, but we know what to expect now, which is Esperanza Montero from Madrid, Spain, feminist, LGBTQ activist, and a firm believer in Larptivism. Isn't it beautiful, Larptivism? Larp's potential to raise awareness and inspire social change. They started not only Larp with Enrique and other friends, and is usually the project manager and producer of Null Larps. And today we will hear about design to play oppression, conscious, and calm down. Bravo for the speaker. Esperanza Montero.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for being here and also for the organizers. Thank you for inviting me. So we're going to talk about oppression, and I'm going to use 2 labs that we organized to see what failed terribly. In my opinion, we as LARP organizers need to own our mistakes and learn from it. And I think it's very useful to speak not about how good was your LARP, but what failed, because it's the only thing that you can do to learn. So, as any other organizer, I am biased. Anyone that speaks here and takes a microphone have their own idea. So, to put my take on this, I'm an activist. I have been the president of COGAM, that is the biggest LGBTQ organization. I have been a little bit in politics as well. And I believe that everything that we do is political, because when you belong to a minority group, you don't have the choice to not be political. Meaning, the first thing I did, I said the same in Zagreb when I was in the last portal. The first thing I check and I ask to organizers is like, is it safe that I can openly say safely that I'm queer, that I'm bisexual, I'm a non-binary person, or will I go to jail, or will I die for it? Because there are some countries where this is still happening. So, considering that society has made me political because I didn't have any choice, all that I do have a political idea behind it. About the organization, it's not only LARP. We created it in 2015, I think. And all of the LARPs that we have been creating, they just said, yeah, let's go to a Westworld LARP. It's about intersectional oppression. Let's go to this cool spaceship LARP. It's about racism, xenophobia. Let's go to this contestant TV show LARP. Well, it's about violence. So mostly what we do is we try to create in a 360 environment and in a design that attracts many LARPers. Also the idea of, if you want to think about what has happened here, we want you to bring back an idea and reflect on what has happened during the LARP. Of course, some people choose not to. I remember, for example, one player who was very angry with us. Why have you decided that people who suffer racism and xenophobia should have a ticket first in Mission Together? Is the spaceship LARP we're doing this August. It's like, because the LARP is about racism and xenophobia? I'm against these kind of actions. That's cool. You're not welcome to our LARPs neither. So, I mean, it's okay if you don't want to get the political message, but if you want to reflect on it, it's cool, but also you need to respect that the LARP has a message. And also, it's important to be super clear that you are doing this, because if not, it's called manipulation, and it's not nice. So this is what we do, LARPtivism, and our idea is to inspire social change. So what is oppression? If we go directly to, it's a form of injustice when one social group is subordinated while another is privileged. So it's a form of violence. If we think about this, all of us have some points of not being oppressed and being oppressing to others. For example, I'm read as a woman, This means that most of society don't know that I'm non-binary because I have to say it. So I have the cis privilege because they believe that I'm cis. Cis means not trans. Or I'm bred as a white person that has some advantages in this world. I'm not a poor person. This means I have lots of privileges over other people. But I'm bisexual. You're not entirely normal. So if you see there's different levels of situations, and if we think about what is the less oppressed group, we should think about someone who is rich, who is a man, who is not transsexual, transgender, and also who's someone who comes from an Occidental country for several other reasons. In each society, this is different because it depends on what is the society made of. You will find different ideas of what is correct and what is not. I'm speaking about this, I know it's taking a lot of time, but if we're speaking about oppression, it's not just to oppress a character in a LARP. It has lots of more things. So I want you to think, when you're using this kind of oppression techniques, to think about what you're exactly doing to your players, and the most important part, why do you want to play with oppression? So when I started LARPing like 10 years ago or so, it was super common in my country. I don't know how many rapes of my characters have I read in the story of my life. It was an easy way to make someone suffer. But it was used as a recurrent thing, as it was nothing, like raping someone was not important. And I'm not against using rape stories in LARPs. I use them in my LARPs, but always for a reason. Because sometimes when you use oppression, it's not about going to a LARP and cry a lot. Because there are people who are our daily life. Meaning, I was sexually abused, I'm bisexual, I need to travel in. So said that is like, sometimes when we go to LARPs and say, oh, I was in just a little lovin', I know what it is to be gay. No, come on, you were a traveler, a misery traveler, and you were 10 minutes into sleeping in my toes, but you have no fucking idea how this feels. Or same goes, for example, as we're doing, for example, Mission Together, it's about racism. So the first thing I did is speak with Jonaya Kemper, who's actually has a PhD in LARPs and oppression and racism. It's like, you need to call someone who understands, because I cannot relate to the experience of a black person, because I'm not black. I have no fucking clue of that. So first thing is, why are you doing that? Because you need to show some respect for the people who are really living them in their real life. So how can you play with violence? Because as we know, oppression can be different things. For example, oppression can be that people insult you. Oppression can be that people beat you up. Oppression can be that people hit you. And there are different ways where our society, in our daily lives, we perpetuate the oppression. So, but how can we do this in a LARP environment? I don't know if this has happened to you sometimes in your cultures, because every culture is different, but I remember once, it's like, I was in a LARP, it's like, you need to torture this guy. I don't know him. Yeah, but go and torture him. And it was very stupid, because it's a moment where, how can I torture? I mean, I didn't have time to talk with the guy. So we were pretending that we were torturing each other, torturing him, and doing stuff, but everything was so stupid, because we didn't know his life story, his boundaries, his anything. And in my opinion, the only way to play this is playing it safe, creating a safe structure where everyone can feel confident to play the aggressor without having bad feelings or being bad-mouthed. Another thing that also happens. I listened to this guy, did this to this person on a LARP, and suddenly he's the bad guy. No, man. His character did all of these horrible things, and it was created a safe environment to do all of this at the LARP, with a reason, with a story reason, or with a narrative reason. So, and we go to the question that is exactly the same that we were talking before, where we had Alessandro, we had other guys speaking about that. What is safe? Well, it depends. I've heard that in some countries, physical harm is possible and not problematic. I've heard that in some countries you cannot hug players. For example, USA LARPs, they negotiate, they calibrate until the last detail of what's going to happen. So what means safe for me might not be the same that is for Martin or for you or for you. So the first thing that we are doing, especially when we are working with an international audience, we create LARPs. For example, in this project this summer, we have people from 30 different nationalities coming. From Australia, Taiwan, United States, United Kingdom, all Europe, many Nordics are coming as well. So it's like, I don't have a clue of what is safe for them. So I need to create and design, because I believe that safety design is an important part of the design that sometimes we think is part of the design, but we don't entirely get to the point. It's like, who are these people? What are they expecting for the LARP? And can I hurt them somehow? So the first thing is to be super open about what is safe for us as an organization. From the beginning they arrive, meaning what do I consider perfect as an organizer? From the moment we play, how do we play? And what do we do if things go wrong? So in our neighborhood, we all play different, right? It has happened to all of us. You have a kind of a game, and when you change neighborhoods or schools, no, we play it like this. So it's very important to understand a bit, or at least to show them how do we play. Also, what means safe for me is not what is universally safe, because for some players, what doesn't trigger me doesn't mean that it can trigger someone. Maybe someone can be triggered by, I don't know, a hug or worms, and I had an idea of making a scene with worms, for example. So I need to be super aware of what is happening there, and be honest and set clear expectations. That sometimes is complicated when you're using your second or third language. That happens commonly in international LARPs. So I'm going to take a case study about conscience. It was a LARP about humanity. It was based in Westworld. The idea is conscience, humanity, and oppression, considering what is conscience, and it was based on an individual moral philosophy or value system. What is human, what means being human, and what's being humane. I think I have mispronounced all of this, sorry. English is my second language. I'm smarter in Spanish, I have to say. So, it was a LARP about humans and robots who were enslaved. So we have a company who was creating a park for people who were working in the park, and were maintaining robots who were telling a story of the Old West, and they were customers that were doing horrible things to robots. This is mostly the story. It's very complex from a design point of view, because you have different levels of play. So you have hosts, that are the robots who are interacting with guests. This is the Old West. The hosts, when they're broken, they go to maintenance. The behavior of the hosts can be changed by some characters that are working in the company, and the entire plot writing of the park can be managed by 7 people who were controlling the narrative real time for 70 people. That sounds cool. It was not fun to design, and it was not fun to make it happen properly, because all of this has lots of wormholes. So if we think about the oppression by groups, what we did, if this allows me, that is stuck. Okay, yes. So we have different levels of oppression. We were thinking about, okay, so this is our humans. Until here, they're humans. Well, mostly. But shareholders, okay, so the guys with money. We are setting it nowadays, or something close by nowadays. So this means that money is a really important thing. Then we have the guests, the customers, they were rich people, board of directors, they had behavior plot. The last ones are the maintenance, that they were the blue-collared workers. And also we have straight male host, straight female host, and queer host, because LGBTQ phobia was also part of the LARP, as feminism was also part of the LARP. So we have different things to work in. So this is mostly all of the design that we thought about, and it's fucking crazy, and there are many things missing. But to show you what we did. So the LARP plays around oppression, and it works with sexual violence. It's not a need, but it's designed to happen. This means we need to look very closely because we have players that don't want to play on sexual violence. They might not want to be looking at that, but as we said, we cannot promise you won't hear about that, because it's one of the themes of the LARP. So what we did is we designed a couple of areas that were called red zones, where sexual violence or nudity could happen, with a lot, but a lot of rules. So we have the usual green, yellow, red that many organizations use it with different names or things to do, but it's an idea of raising intensity, slowing down intensity, or stopping the scene. That is totally needed. Also, we understood that we made many tests until we came up with this. In one of the first tests, we realized it's fun to play a robot, but humans are not robots. So it's not fun to be staring half an hour without moving. So it would be nice to have a tool so players could say to the maintenance guy, low battery, I need to go back to the park. That meant the player was not having fun and they wanted to go out. That it makes sense. But if you were thinking as a player and you consider that the person that is playing this is a robot, because at some point you will leave it, it's important to find a way out. By the way, we are using it now in many LARPs as a way to get out, because it's also important for player to have a way to opt out quickly. And for the violence and sexual violence, so we had some problems, because when we started this, it was our fourth LARP. We did it with, it was very scary, because we were sending something to the international community, and we said, what if we don't get one run? And then when we saw the names of all of the super known designers or super known people, it was super scary to see this, because if we fuck up, we were not going to be able to play LARPs or organize anything ever in Europe. So it was our main take with this. And we had players, and at some point we brought people from the United States also to the team. So at some point we discovered that some people were not okay with people touching them. And for us, we didn't have plan for that. It was not part of the website. So it's like, what if we say, if you're not wearing a ribbon, we were using ribbons with colors. By the way, it is cool if you're not playing with lighting. If you're playing with lighting, you're fucked up, because the colors of the ribbon change, and it's not fun. So we say, if you don't have a ribbon, I cannot touch you. Okay, I can live with that. And we say, white ribbon. So the player agrees with violence. And red ribbon. The player agrees to negotiate with sexual violence. Because why did we do that? Because there are people that can go to the LARP and have fun in the LARP, but don't want to speak a word about sexual violence. So what we did is, you could only negotiate with people who was wearing that, and you could only have the scene if the player was still wearing that red ribbon, because it's something you can change your mind. That horrible scene that you wanted to leave in the morning, maybe in the afternoon you're not up for it. So it's like you remove the ribbon and everything is fine. And we set a lot of negotiation previously. It's like, okay, you go off game and speak. So the first thing is, we need to talk. I want to leave with you a pillow fighting scene, or whatever you have in mind. And do you have any limits of triggers? So you can know, first of all, if the players want to play it. Second, what are the boundaries? And we discovered that the USA players wanted to negotiate everything. And for example, the Spanish or the Italians were like, what the fuck are you telling me? That I'm not going to this, I'm not going to represent your scene second by second, because from some cases it was like, I want you to go here and touch me, and then you're going to say this, this, and that, and in my culture that is theater, that is not playing. But in other cultures it's important for them. So we said, it's like, speak with the players, like, do you want to negotiate everything? Or it's like, no, I'm done with, this is at the limits, so I want to know that this is going to happen, and that. So we created kind of a space, a mandatory space to play with this kind of violence. Of course, you could do many other things except this, but this was a way to try to get all of the cultures playing together. That was complicated, and it didn't work entirely, of course. And also we were using the okay check-in. I don't know if you know this. It's like, how are you? I'm okay. So, I'm not okay. So you can be crying horribly. Someone gets to you, so they don't stop your scene, and you can do this, so crying horribly. But that means that you can ask anybody if they're okay. What failed? Okay. many things. Lost in translation. I remember a specific moment where we had all of the organizers looking for a couple of words in the Oxford Dictionary because our words meant differently from them. We said communal room, and from some people in some cultures that mean a 6-people room, and they were demanding 6-people rooms, and in our culture it can be 50 people in a room, and that's okay. Actually, most of the people in my culture would be happy to share a room with 50 people. Of course, people who have more money will be happy to pay more to not be in that situation, but we were in that situation. Cultural misunderstandings, lots of them. Because the Italians didn't want to negotiate and they were angry because there was negotiation, while the US people were super happy that there was a negotiation. So it was a mess. And also, we didn't have any experience. We were going on the go. We didn't have any clue how to do this. And for us, it was super clear that the negotiation were from the beginning, but people sign up, and some months after, we tell them how to negotiate. But it was written they had to negotiate. And this is one of the I want to continue with my immersion exploded thing. This required lots of time from us. In the beginning, I remember I said something stupid. I'm not going to put one organizer to be in charge of safety because we don't have enough resources to dedicate it to that. Think that I regretted all of the 4 runs we did. So if you're doing a big LARP with lots of impact, please have a safety organizer, is someone who is available for the players so they can talk. So if you are coordinating the scenes, don't need to be in charge of that. Same goes if you have someone that's in charge of logistics, you don't need to take care of other stuff. Peer pressure. Yes, I created all of that. I tell them you should not take alcohol. Alcohol was forbidden during the game to avoid having situation of people blaming alcohol for the things they did. But everyone were doing so many extreme stuff that some people started to feel peer pressure to be in that group of people doing horrible stuff. And I cannot prevent a player for breaking their own boundaries because of peer pressure. Unsafe or safe is not universal. I remember there was one player who was very triggered because it was a park. And when we make the first 2 runs, there were not many tourists, but in the 3 and 4, there were some families with children. And for that specific group of people, because there was not one person, but a few of them, it's like, you're playing horrible violence in the streets, and I don't want the kids to watch this. And I didn't even realize this could be a trigger for someone. But again, what is safe for me is not safe for everyone. So we had to learn from that too. Not all content had a warning. The robots who are making, of course, a revolution and uprising, because it's cool to make revolutions on LARPs, they had some recordings, but we didn't put warnings on the recordings. So some people at some point had messages that they didn't want to hear because they had content they didn't want to hear. So we changed it in run 4, but it was not good. And it's something that everything that you do need to have a warning because you might have forgotten stuff. And at some point, the safety system seemed too complicated for some players because you have zones, you have millions of signs on stuff. So it's like, if we ever run this again, we will need to find a way to make it easier to remember. And the workshops weren't great. We are working on it. And of course, the usual stuff. None in this room has lived this burnout of organizers, something that doesn't happen. So, next case, countdown. So, it was a LARP about TV contest. It was inspired by the book. So the idea is like, it's like Big Brother, but the people decide who dies. And the only people who is left alive is the winner. So it's a LARP about violence, mostly. Violence, class struggle, and oppression, mostly. So what went wrong in this case? So we were using the OK check-in, the red, the colors, and everything. I decided it's like, what if I run this on my own? Because there are only 30 players, and no. Because I have many collaborators, but it's not the same if you're a LARP organizer that if you're a collaborator, because the level of what you feel that you have to do before the LARP is different because you're only helping. So don't do this. Not all players understood what the LARP was about. We were super clear it was a LARP about violence, but many people were complaining about it was about violence. And also, it said specifically that LGBTQ phobia was not part of the experience, but everything else was. So sex violence was part of the LARP themes. But some players complained about that. So it's like, so instead of saying this is not in the LARP and everything else will, maybe you have some ideas in your mind that the players don't think of. It's better to put the themes of the LARP. The LARP is about all of this, and these are the don'ts. No way, but this is what the LARP is about. And you need to choose it carefully. Also, I regret adding sexual violence in that LARP, because sexual violence, it's everything. I mean, when you have this kind of scene, there's no level of violence that can go further. We had a safety room that in one run we used it also for one scene, was not a great idea. And also we were playing with food, like giving players an amount, impossible amount of food, and to others giving them only one cookie to eat. So we have some food at the safety room, and it didn't work because we had people who were needing a safety room and people who were trying to eat. And also, not everyone decompresses the same. Some people might need to have 5 friends around, and some players need a quiet place to be in. So it didn't work for that as well. In round 1, it was chaos and mayhem. It didn't go well. And in round 2, we did something that we thought it belonged to the Nordics, and we took it from them, and it worked. We created a space. It was optional, where you could put music, and you could negotiate what the horrible things you were planning then. So it gave the space for the players who wanted to be part of that. It was optional. It's like, if you listen to this song in this room, people who is there is off-game negotiating. And then I realized at some point, it's like, should we stop the negotiation? Everyone was like, no, give me more time. I want to do more horrible things. And it worked. So I come from a culture where breaking immersion was like breaking the law. And I discovered it's like, hey, it's totally okay to get out, negotiate everything, give the people space to decide, especially when you're playing oppression. It's like, what do you want to experience? And it worked. We even convinced Martin that it was a good idea. He was not super keen on that, and he thought it was a good idea. And also we had another problem. What we do usually is like, when people sign up, we send the list of players to the players so they can decide with whom do they want to play and which person they think it could be dangerous for anyone. That we have horrible people in our community too. But we had NPCs who had access to information in the LARP, and these people were not, because they were friends of the players, but they had some pieces of information, access to information, and they were not that vetted for the players. And it became a bit problematic. So every time, even if it's the photographer, put the name of everyone who's involved in the LARP, so players have the right to decide if they want to play with that person or not. So as a summary, first thing, what do you want to play oppression in your story? You need someone that lives this in real life. Safety is LARP design too. And in this kind of LARPs, it's not LARP design, it's a very piece important design. It's not universal. What it works for me or in my culture is not exactly the same for everyone. Communication is key. Also, it would be better for you to find someone who's a real English speaker, I mean a native speaker, so you actually say what you want to say. Because even if we're international LARPers are super keen and tend to super understandable, you can create chaos and mayhem because you think you're communicating well and you don't. Make players aware of everything. Content warnings, cross-checks of players, everything. And own your mistakes. This is super important. When you fuck up in a LARP, sometimes people don't want more than, I'm super sorry, I'm going to learn from this, and you learn from that. So this is, thank you very much for listening to me. This is what we are doing next year. And also you feel free to contact me, or if there's anything I can do to help, I'll be super happy to help, as all of the LARP community has done with me.